Hey guys, it's Thomas from NurseMoneyTalk. Now, in so many videos, I've mentioned constantly about just how versatile and great the nursing profession is in terms of how much you can make and in terms of what your options are. Now, in this video, I'm going to focus in a little bit more on the how much you can make as a nurse by specifically covering three things, which I'm sure you can already tell from the title of this video that you're watching. I'm gonna cover can nurses make six figures? So this would be, greater than $100,000 a year. I'm gonna cover how easy it is for nurses to actually do that. And then the third thing I'm gonna cover is just what do you have to do as a nurse to be able to kind of get to that point where you're making more than $100,000 a year. Before I get to that though, I want to go ahead and invite you to make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you find this video helpful, I would really appreciate a thumbs up because that does help the video in terms of the YouTube algorithm to make sure that more people are able to see this video. Any links to anything I mentioned, you can find that in the description below. Let's go ahead and get started with the first part, which is, can nurses make six figures? The answer to this question is actually yes. Nurses can make more than $100,000 a year. Now, as for the next part, which is how easy it is for nurses to make more than $100,000 a year, I think it can be easy and it can be hard, and it just really depends on what state you're at. It depends on what state you're currently living in, what specialty of nursing you work in, and then also like what degree of nursing do you have or what licensure. So for example, it's going to be harder for an LPN to make six figures than it would be for an RN. And then it's going to be harder for an RN to make six figures as opposed to an APRN, an advanced practice nurse. So this would be like your nurse practitioner, your a nurse anesthetist of the world. The next part is I'm going to cover some of what you can do if you want to get to that point of making six figures as a nurse, because it's something that's actually fairly doable, depending on honestly on how bad you want it. And I have also heard of even new nurses being able to pull this off. So the first thing you should consider if you're looking at making six figures is maybe looking at getting an advanced nursing degree. So as I've already mentioned before, compared to an LPN, it's easier for an RN, and then compared to an advanced practice nurse, it's going to be easier for them than a registered nurse. And so maybe you should consider kind of moving, getting a higher degree. So if you look at, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, so the median wage for an LPN is about $50,000. The median wage for an RN is about $73,300, give or take. If you're looking at the median wage for advanced practice nurses, you're looking at $117,670 a year. So about $56.57 an hour. And if you break out specifically the nurse anesthetist, you're looking at almost $200,000 as their median wage, so about $189,190 a year. And so what does this tell you? It tells you that a degree can significantly impact and give you a better chance of making six figures. And so if you are an LPN, consider getting your RN. If you're an RN, consider getting getting an advanced degree. Becoming a nurse provider, if you will. You can check out nursemoneytalk.com/schools, and then be able to kind of look for schools and maybe get started in a nursing program. Now, of course, school isn't cheap. And then school is also going to take some time and a little bit of struggle to kind of get to that point. But that is something to kind of keep in mind. Not to mention, you also will get the advantage of having a little bit more options on at your disposal than you otherwise would. The second thing that you could do to increase your likelihood of making six figures is, of course, looking at either changing jobs or changing what specialty of nursing that you currently work in. So I've written a couple articles on like how much nurses make and whatnot. Now, of course, that's something to keep in mind, is that that's going to vary, and sometimes it can vary a lot based on what area, what city you're working in. So definitely keep that in mind. But I've written a couple of articles. One of them was on highest paying RN jobs. I'll put a link to that below. But one of the things that you will see in that article is that a lot of these specialty nursing jobs, so your oncology nurse, your flight nurse, maybe your transplant ICU nurse, your GI nurses, like some of these very specialty area nurses are typically, where a nurse has the most potential to make the most amount of money. And that kind of makes sense if you think about it, because once you get into really deep into a specialty, you can't just have anybody come in and do those jobs. So for instance, while you can have, and this isn't to make it seem like med-surg nurses, like being a med-surg nurse or the med-surg specialty is like super easy, but for the most part, any nurse can adapt to being a med-surg nurse, roughly speaking. There's not, as far as I've seen, any really specialty certifications or specialty training that you need for that. But once you start getting into these super specialties where like you have to be, you have to be ACLS certified, it requires so many like weeks or months of specialty training to understand what you're doing. You have to have some certification like chemo certified or something like that. Then you can't just have any nurse, you can't just float any nurse to come and do it. Like they have to actually be properly trained to do those specialties. Keep in mind that even with these jobs, that even some of these specialties, they might not necessarily get you to the six figures. They can, depending on what city or state you're living in, they can get you pretty close. You might have to put in the extra time or the overtime to be able to get to that point where you're breaking that six-figure mark. But some of these specialties will get you a heck of a lot closer to that six-figure mark than some of the other ones. While talking about working overtime, that's actually going to be my next point, which is that honestly, sometimes the easiest way to break that six-figure mark is just to pick up extra shifts in the facility that you already work in. I will mention that there have been what I would call, over the years, smart ways I've seen nurses do this, and that's like nurses who take advantage of any bonus or specialty programs that their facility might have. So for instance, I worked at a facility once that would give out bonuses and sometimes double bonuses if nurses picked up like a shift at the last minute. So like it would be one thing, like maybe you were off, or maybe like the day you're actually off, they would give you a call. They'll tell you like, hey, like we're really short staffed. Can you come in? Oh, no, I'm not able to come in. Okay, so can you do it for a bonus? Well, maybe, sure. And then if they're really desperate, they'll offer you a double bonus. So that's like last minute type stuff. Now, at that facility I worked at, their bonus was $225, if I remember correctly. So, and that double bonus would be what? $225 times 2. So that would be what? $450. So that is $225 or $450 that you would get like on top of your regular pay plus overtime, because at times when you're coming in, you're already gonna be in overtime. And so what ended up happening is like I worked with nurses who would end up taking advantage of this. So some even got to the point where like they wouldn't even like if a house supervisor or whatever called them, they weren't even interested, and they would flat out just tell you, hey, if you want me to come in, it's going to be a bonus, it's going to be a double bonus or whatever for me to get my, for me to actually inconvenience myself to come in. And so you saw nurses that would take advantage of programs like that or learn how to leverage that. Other situation I've seen is like, even if it's not a bonus situation, I've seen situations where hospitals would offer, so as far as their bonus or incentive to get you to pick up shifts, they might offer you double time, triple time. I think I've even seen like a quadruple time. They were desperate. So that is 2 times your pay, 3 times your pay, 4 times your pay just for you to come in. They were that desperate. I don't know if it's been a while, probably a couple years since I've seen that. I've heard of that, so I don't know if that's still, if they're offering money quite like that to get nurses come in. But I have seen and heard of that happen in the past. Other things, like I've worked at another facility where what was it? Like there was a special program to where you would get like a bonus. I think they did it at the end of a 6-week period. So that was the schedule period. So the schedule period was every 6 weeks. And so if you picked up like so many extra shifts, you would get X amount of money on top of that for every shift that you would pick up. So I had a nurse that I worked with who made over 6 figures. I know this because he, interesting enough, one day was showing his pay stuff. So he made over 6 figures just picking up that extra shift. And so I think what it actually ended up working out was that he would pick up an extra 12 hours. So pretty much he was working 4/12s just about every week. And that, and if you think about it, that's okay. So that's like 48 hours a week, but that's only 8 hours on top of that. And you still have like your 3 days, 3 days off. And then plus, of course, the overtime on top of it. So he was doing actually pretty well with that. The point I say all of this is that if your facility has things like that, then it's, or if you end up working for a place that has that, so that might be worth kind of taking a look at, leveraging, seeing like, okay, how can I make this work for me to be able to reach whatever goals I'm wanting to reach. Because hopefully with this, you're not trying to make 6 figures just for the sake of making 6 figures, but hopefully you're trying to make 6 figures because you have like some kind of either short-term or long-term goal that you're wanting to achieve. Now, I always have to throw in this caveat when I'm talking about overtime, because I know plenty of nurses who love their overtime shifts. Honestly, I did a fair bit of overtime shifts, prior to getting married and whatnot. And so something to keep in mind is that an overtime, like working a lot of hours, it's not for everyone. And you need to know when to stop or when to never even start to begin with, because it can be detrimental to your health, both physically, mentally, and emotionally, depending on depending on you and what specialty or area of nursing that you're working in. So definitely make sure that you are keeping tabs on how much stress and strain you're putting on your body when you go down this route, because that's why I kind of look at some of these advanced practice nursing positions and, so getting like a further degree or some of these other options I'll give, because at times that could mean that you'll be making a little bit more per hour. So you don't have to work so many hours to be able to achieve the same thing. Next one is you could consider kind of moving or changing locations. So I've mentioned before that depending on that, certain states do pay nurses more than others. And so typically, so for instance, you're probably looking at like your coastal states or cities, you're probably going to be making more than probably some of the like the states or cities like probably in the Midwest or like the South. But the thing to keep in mind with this before you start trying to make plans to up and move to a different state is that in a lot of these cities or states, you can have a higher cost of living that at times can kind of wash away the like how much extra you're getting paid, just kind of like to illustrate an example, so if you're in city A and you want to move to city B, if city B is going to pay you 2 times the amount of what you're making in city A, that might seem kind of nice and that might seem like a good thing. But if city B is also then going to turn around and be 3 times more expensive to live in than city A, then of course you're gonna end up being worse off than if you would have just kept in city A. I hope that makes sense. And kind of like the illustration help kind of get that across. Let me know in the comment sections below if it did make sense. But can be a great option. So definitely check that out. The next one is starting a side hustle. So a side hustle is one of those things where like I really do believe that pretty much everyone, yes, including nurses, should have some kind of side hustle. So this could be something that maybe brings you a little bit extra revenue or something of that nature. So some options out there. So like for instance, I've seen, there was one nurse that I was in education with that actually owned a shop. I think it was a popcorn shop actually. So maybe starting a nurse blog or some kind of digital online business. I've seen like freelance nurse writers, so nurses who maybe write for publications or something else. Another side hustle that can be fairly halfway lucrative is like being a proofreader. So proofreading articles or whatever that somebody else wrote. And so if that's something that one in particular, the proofreading, if that's something that interests you, go to NurseMoneyTalk.com/proofread. I'll put a link to it in the descriptions below. But yeah. And then, so there's like a webinar or whatnot that'll actually get you started as well with that. But the point of it is like these side hustles can be ways to kind of help get a little bit of extra income in, to once again, to help you achieve whatever goal that you might have, whether short or long term. The next one is about starting your own business. Now, if you're wondering, wait, I already mentioned about the side hustle, why am I now mentioning about starting your own business? Well, the business and the side hustle, I kind of separate that a little bit. I think the side hustle can eventually become a business, but what I mean by a business is like, you're no longer doing that on the side where like on the weekend or after the kids go to bed, like it's starting to become your full-time gig. And so things like that I've seen, I've seen some very, very ambitious nurses over the years. I've seen like some digital businesses become like the full time. I've met a couple nurses now who have started some kind of their own agency or, especially like a staffing agency of sorts and are just doing really, really, really well with that. So there's once again the other example that I gave before about the nurse who was doing the popcorn shop and just kind of decided they wanted to go back and pick up some part-time working as a nurse. Prior to that, they were working, they were doing the shop full time. That was their full time gig. They just wanted to keep their nursing skills up. So there's definitely a lot of options there, either from side hustle or full-fledged, business of sorts. And, it can be nursing or health related. So like a health coach or something like that. But keep in mind that you don't have to keep it just nursing related. I mean, you are, like you're more than a nurse. You probably have like other hobbies, other interests that you might have. See if there's a way that you can leverage those skill sets or those interests and turning into a business that can make money. My second to last one that I'll mention, and I thought it was kind of thrown in up at the top, but I don't think I highlighted enough. And so I'll go ahead and highlight it. And that's like looking at the travel nurse route. I don't mention travel nursing a fair bit, or as much as I would like. And that's just because like I've talked to some nurses here and there who have done travel nursing. And one of the things that has been obvious to me is that while travel nursing is a great way to make money, and I think you can definitely make six figures being a travel nurse, the other thing to keep in mind is that it's also a great way to make less as well. So in terms of if you don't negotiate your contract well, so there's also a lot of expenses as well that a travel nurse is going to have or could have that a nurse who's just a regular staff nurse working in their own state might not have. And so one thing I might make a separate video just on that specifically, but I did want to mention, because some of you I'm sure this would probably cross your mind, that travel nursing can be a great option for this if you're careful to make sure that you actually negotiate well and you do the math and make sure that the numbers are actually going to work out in your favor. Because I've talked to a couple of, because I've worked with a fair bit of travel nurses over the years, and the numbers don't always work out in your favor if you're not careful. The last point I'm going to mention about this trying to make as much money as possible as a nurse is that you need to know how to manage your personal finance. That's actually my last advice. And I think it's a great one to end with, because if you don't know how to manage your money, you're in trouble. If you don't know how to budget, if you don't know how to save, if you don't know how to invest, if you don't know how to give, if you don't know how to be able to do all of those things, it's a problem. And so it doesn't matter how much money you manage to create or how much money you manage to accumulate, because you're going to end up not being able to manage it well, and you're going to end up losing all of it. You can't make enough money to get over poor management skills and dumb decisions. And that's just the truth of the matter. And some of you be like, well, no, you can make a ton of money and it doesn't matter what you do. No, it does matter, because if you remember the scenarios of the athletes, these are people who have made probably tens of millions of dollars and end up going broke at the end of their career after accumulating all that wealth. And that's because they don't know how to manage it. And so also in the descriptions below, and also in the blog post, and you'll see that below, I'm gonna put in some books that I think are really great. I think would be good for just getting yourself in that mindset. Because remember, it's not just about, because I'm sure it's not just about the making six figures, making more than $100,000, because that's not the end. That's just the means to the end of accomplishing what your goals are, which could be saving for retirement, which could be maybe being able to go on vacation, being able to send your kids to a private school, saving for your kids' college, whatever the case may be. The money is a means to an end to achieve your actual goals that you want. So yeah, so definitely check out those books at the end. So if you're just looking for like a financial advisor, so maybe you're just like, I just need help in terms of being able to manage my personal finance. Like you just know that is a struggle for you. Just go to nursemoneytalk.com/financial advisor. I will put a link to that in the descriptions below, and then you'll be able to check out, see if you can find a financial advisor in your area to be able to hopefully then navigate and walk you through that. But yeah, so that is all I have for this particular video. Let me know what you think in the comment sections below. If you have any questions, any comments over anything that I mentioned, is there something that you've seen that nurses have used to leverage and start earning six figures that I didn't mention? Let me know in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll catch you very soon in that next one.